Have you ever shared something deeply personal only to feel uneasy afterward? As if a part of your peace was taken away the moment you handed your truth to someone else? We often confide in others hoping for understanding, support, or simply to feel less alone. But sometimes what we give away in conversation ends up being used in ways that hurt us later. And that leaves a wound far deeper than we expect. Not everyone you trust has the capacity to honor your trust. Some people smile at you, speak kindly, and offer a listening ear. But behind that warmth might be something else. A desire to know, not to help. A curiosity that masks judgment. Or even envy disguised as concern. The truth is, once you let someone into your inner world, you can never fully take that access back. Silence, in contrast, offers protection. It helps your thoughts and hopes in a place untouched by careless words or harmful intentions. Allah Almighty reminds us in the Quran, "Do not follow what you have no knowledge of. Indeed, the hearing, the sight, and the heart about all those will be questioned." This verse is a reminder not only for what we do, but for what we say and share. When we speak, especially about our personal lives, we should ask, is this being said with wisdom? Is this space even safe? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught part of the perfection of a person's faith is to leave what does not concern them. This hadith is not just about avoiding gossip or unnecessary matters, but also about learning when to be silent, even about our own lives. You do not owe everyone an explanation. You do not need to announce your every move. Growth does not require applause. Peace does not require validation. When you keep something private, you're not being cold. You are being wise. Because not every space is sacred. Not every listener is safe. Sometimes the greatest act of love you can show yourself is restraint. Holding back your words, not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. Because some things are still unfolding within you. They're not ready to be shared. And that's okay. Silence allows your journey to remain pure, free from projections, criticisms, or the weight of someone else's expectations. When you speak too soon, your dream may be misunderstood. Your healing may be judged. Your intention may be questioned. And once that happens, it can leave you second-guessing what Allah already placed in your heart. Let your silence be a form of strength, a protection over the path you're walking. Your story is precious. Your progress is sacred. And not everyone has the right to carry the weight of what you've been through. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling a weight you couldn't explain? You thought you were just sharing a piece of yourself, but afterward you felt exposed, empty, regretful, almost like your peace had been traded for a moment of connection that never truly felt safe. It's not your imagination. Some people ask about your life not because they care, but because they're curious. They want details, not to support you, but to measure you, to compare, to complete. Or to quietly rejoice when things go wrong. There's a kind of darkness that sits in the hearts of those who can't celebrate others. Their smiles are soft, their words gentle. But deep inside is envy they never confront. The moment you open up, you hand them access to the very things that disturb their spirit. And that's when your silence becomes your greatest protection. Allah Almighty says in the Quran, "Indeed, mankind was created anxious. When evil touches him, he is impatient. And when good touches him, he withholds." This verse speaks deeply to how we respond to blessings and hardships, not just in ourselves, but in others. When people see you blessed, many don't say, "May Allah Almighty increase them." They say it with their mouths, but their hearts feel something else. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned us of this reality when he said, "Seek help in the fulfillment of your needs by being discreet. For everyone who is blessed is envied." These are not empty words. They are guidance for survival in a world full of subtle harms. Envy may not always announce itself. It may not scream or attack. Sometimes it sits in the quiet smile of someone who says they're happy for you, while deep down they wish it was them instead. That is why your silence matters, not because you are afraid, but because you are aware. You know not every heart is sincere, not every space is safe, and not every listener is meant to hold your truth. When you remain quiet about your goals, your relationships, your blessings, you give yourself space to grow without pressure, without judgment. You allow your dreams to take root without the poison of someone else's bitterness. You don't have to tell everyone what you're working on. Let them see the result, not the process. Let them see the light, not the flame that almost went out. Your journey is between you and Allah Almighty. And if you protect it, He will nurture it. The ones who truly care for you will support you without needing every detail. They won't ask for proof before making prayers for your success. They won't need access to your pain in order to respect your growth. So be cautious with your words. Be mindful of your circle. Keep sacred what Allah Almighty has placed in your heart. Not everything needs to be shared. Not every smile means safety. And not every listener deserves your truth. When you are working on something close to your heart, something meaningful, whether it's healing, improving your habits, or starting a new chapter, there is something sacred about keeping it quiet. Not because you're hiding, but because what is sacred deserves protection. Just like a seed is buried in darkness before it breaks through the soil, your growth needs privacy before it's ready for the world. If you expose it too early, you invite energies that might confuse, disturb, or even break it before it's strong enough to stand. Some people may doubt you, not because you can't succeed, but because they can't imagine it for themselves. Others may support you, but their support comes with expectations and timelines that do not match your journey. Even positive attention can bring pressure to perform, to prove, to be something you're not ready to be yet. Allah Almighty tells us in the Quran, there is no soul, but that it has over it a protector. This verse reminds us that we are not alone. Our lives are under divine care. And part of honoring that care is learning how to protect what we're building from premature exposure. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, verily, among the excellence of a person's Islam is that he leaves what does not concern him. Your life, your goals, your transformation, these are not for public consumption. They are not entertainment. They are a trust between you and your Creator. When you share your plans too soon, you trick your own mind into thinking you've already made progress. You feel a small thrill, as if speaking the goal is the same as achieving it. But that false sense of accomplishment can be dangerous. It takes your eyes off the actual work and puts it on the reaction of others. That is not where growth happens. Silence is not emptiness. It is space, it is clarity. It allows your efforts to be shaped by sincerity instead of performance. You're no longer chasing approval. You're chasing excellence for the sake of Allah Almighty alone. The more private your progress is, the more pure your intention becomes. There are no spectators to impress, no critics to silence, no pressure to explain every step. Only you, your goal, and the one who sees everything you do, even when no one else does. In that kind of silence, you are free. You can fail without fear, adjust your path without explanation, and keep going without being watched. That is where real strength grows. So move in silence. Build in silence. Let your results speak, not your mouth. And when you finally arrive at the moment of success, let it be known, not because you announced it, but because it could no longer be hidden. Have you ever poured your heart out to someone only to feel smaller afterward? Not because what you said was wrong, but because their response made you question everything. You expected understanding, but instead you got silence, or worse, judgment. The truth is, many people are not equipped to carry what you've lived through. They haven't walked your path. They haven't seen the nights you cried alone. They haven't fought the silent battles that shaped your strength. So when you share that story with the wrong person, it often gets lost in translation. Or worse, used against you. Everyone hears through the lens of their own pain, their own experiences, their own fears. When your story doesn't fit their understanding, they may reject it. Not because your truth is wrong, but because it's too real for them to face. Allah Almighty says in the Quran, "And be not like those who forgot Allah, so He made them forget themselves." When a heart becomes distant from its creator, it also loses touch with compassion, with depth, with sincerity. That kind of heart is not a safe place for your vulnerability. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave us a gentle but powerful reminder. The strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, but there is good in both. Cherish that which gives you benefit. Seek help from Allah and do not give up. This teaches us something essential. Strength begins with choosing what protects your peace. Sometimes that means saying nothing at all. Not every listener is saved. Not every friend is sincere. Some are drawn to your pain not to help heal it, but to understand it just enough to use it later. Others listen not to support you, but to feel better about their own lives. And some judge not because they are cruel, but because they are uncomfortable with how your truth confronts their comfort. When you speak your truth, make sure it is to someone who has shown you depth, compassion, and maturity. Someone who prays for you in your absence, not gossips about you in your silence. Someone who can listen without trying to fix, correct, or criticize. You don't have to share your story to be heard. Allah Almighty already knows. And sometimes that's enough. In fact, it is more than enough. Protect your heart the way you protect your most valuable possession. Because that's what it is. You don't leave treasure out in the open. You don't hand it to someone just because they ask nicely. You place it in the hands of those who have earned the right to hold it with care. And even then, you hold back what is still tender, still healing, still growing. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. It comes from the ones you loved, the ones you trusted, the ones you let close enough to see your weakness, your truth, your heart. You thought they were a safe space. You believed they would hold your story with care, but somewhere along the way they broke what you gave them. Not always loudly, sometimes it was quiet, gossip behind your back, sharing what was meant to be sacred, or using your vulnerability as leverage when the relationship soured. And by the time you realized what had happened, the damage was already done. Your truth was no longer yours. It was in the mouths of people who didn't earn it. It was reduced, twisted, misunderstood. Allah Almighty reminds us with powerful clarity. O you who have believed, do not betray Allah and the Messenger or betray your trust while you know. Trust is not something to be given lightly. Once broken, it doesn't return to its original form. And even forgiveness does not erase the consequences of betrayal. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us the believer is not stung twice from the same hole. This isn't a command to become cold or distant. It's a call to become wise, to learn from pain, to protect what matters. When you share personal parts of your life with someone, you're giving them something that can never be taken back. Words once spoken can't be unsaid, and when spoken to the wrong person, they become a weapon. Some people don't protect what you give them, not because they're evil, but because they lack maturity, or because they conclude closeness with entitlement. They start to speak about your life as if it belongs to them, as if they own your story. They turn your struggle into entertainment, your growth into a memory they mock, your mistakes into a summary of who you are, even though you've already outgrown that version of yourself. That's why being selective with your vulnerability is not bitterness, it's responsibility. It's honoring what Allah Almighty has brought you through. And it's understanding that your story is sacred. Discretion is not coldness, it's wisdom. It's knowing that your healing is not a spectacle. Your journey is not a headline. Your emotions are not content for someone else's conversation. If someone hasn't shown you they can keep what's private, private. If they gossip about others in front of you, they will gossip about you in front of others. That's a reality you can't afford to ignore. So be kind, be compassionate, but you don't need to be loud to be strong. Sometimes the loudest strength is quiet protection, quiet boundaries, quiet wisdom. There's a kind of peace that only silence can protect, a kind of clarity that comes when you stop explaining yourself to everyone. When you no longer feel the need to announce your next step, justify your progress, or seek approval for your growth. The world has taught us that being visible means being validated, that being known means being valued. But in the quiet, you realize something deeper. Peace does not come from being seen. It comes from being sincere, from being aligned with the path Allah Almighty has written for you, even when no one else understands it. When you keep your life private, you're not hiding, you're protecting. You're giving your goals space to breathe. You're allowing your healing to unfold without judgment. You're building strength without the burden of spectators. Allah Almighty says in the Quran, He is the knower of the unseen and does not disclose His knowledge of the unseen to anyone except whom He has approved of as a messenger. Even the unseen of this universe is guarded. Not everything is meant to be revealed. Not every detail is meant to be shared. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, guided us with immense wisdom when he said, "From the perfection of one's faith is to leave what does not concern them." Your life, your plans, your relationships, your healing, these are not topics for casual conversation. They are parts of your soul. They deserve respect. They require boundaries. The more you share, the more you open doors for misunderstanding, judgment, and projection. People don't always see you as you are. They see you through the lens of their own fears, their own regrets, their own insecurities. But when you move in silence, they have nothing to misinterpret, nothing to twist, nothing to use. Your peace becomes your own, untouched, undisturbed. Privacy allows you to shift, to evolve, to learn, to grow without being watched. It gives you the freedom to be in progress without pressure. And perhaps most beautifully, it gives you space to hear your own voice again, to reconnect with your purpose, to align your steps with what pleases Allah Almighty, not with what pleases people. Because the truth is, not everyone can see your vision. Not everyone was meant to understand your path. And that's okay. Their lack of understanding does not mean you are wrong. It simply means your journey was never meant for their eyes. So keep it quiet, keep it sacred, keep it between you and the one who shaped your heart. And here's every silent prayer. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is your silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because what you're building speaks louder than any explanation ever could. You don't need to prove yourself to people who never saw the nights you cried. You don't owe a response to those who never cared to ask how you were doing when it mattered. Let your life speak. Let your character speak. Let the grace of Allah Almighty on your journey speak for you. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your energy. You return it to what truly matters. Your relationship with Allah Almighty, your inner healing, your goals, and your growth. The things that cannot be seen or understood by everyone, but are still worthy, still sacred. Allah Almighty says in the Quran, "And your Lord is most knowing of what is within yourselves. If you should be righteous, then indeed He is ever forgiving to those who return to Him." He knows your heart. He knows your struggles. He knows the silence you choose, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." There is strength in restraint. There is honor in silence. And there is immense peace in letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. Not everyone is supposed to see your process. Not everyone is meant to be part of your becoming. There will be people who misunderstand your silence as arrogance. Let them. There will be others who assume your distance is rejection. Let them. Your duty is not to please the people. Your duty is to remain faithful to what Allah Almighty has placed in your heart. When you protect your peace, you are protecting your connection with Him. You are preserving your clarity, your sincerity, and your ability to keep going without distraction. That quiet determination will carry you further than any announcement ever could. Let them see the results, not the blueprint. Let them witness the fruit, not the planting. Because when Allah Almighty blesses your effort, it cannot be denied. And when you keep it pure, He multiplies it in ways no one can understand. There's a certain beauty in not being figured out, in moving without broadcasting, in living a life rooted in intention, not attention, in choosing peace over praise, privacy over performance, submission over show. So walk